This video is brought to you by mybookie.ag. We are finally here for the UFC 285 predictions. A great card, man. The return of Jon Jones is extremely exciting, especially his first fight in the heavyweight division, which for us longtime fans, we've been waiting for this for years, man. He's been talking about this for 5+ years, and we finally get to see it against Ciryl Gane, who right now is ranked the best heavyweight on the planet, and could be an interesting style for Jon Jones to compete up against. Surely it's not going to be any eye pokes. I wonder if there's actually a betting line on that. Yes and no. Is there going to be an eye poke in this Jon Jones fight? We also have another title fight in Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt against Alexa Grasso. It's a fight for sure. Really going to seem like another Valentina fight. Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov is the fight that we've been waiting for. This is the big step up in competition for Shavkat, and all credit to Neal for even taking this kind of fight. Very dangerous, and he doesn't really win that much by even going up against him. Mateusz Gamrot filling in on short notice against Jalin Turner. It was originally supposed to be Dan Hooker, but this is a much better fight, and a lot of people really picking Gamrot over Turner here. So in the beginning, everybody thought Turner was going to destroy Dan Hooker, but now it seems like everybody thinks that Gamrot is just going to out-grapple Turner. Bo Nickal's on the card. First official UFC fight, and they matched him up stylistically pretty well here. Jamie Pickett's a kind of style that should be pretty good for Bo Nickal to really shine his grappling skills against. Brunson versus Dricus Plessis is a very good fight. I'm actually looking forward to Vivian Araújo versus Amanda Ribas. I'm a fan of both those fighters. Julian Marquez versus Marc-Andre Barrios is going to be a wild one. That's going to be something that's excellently placed to really get you going before the main card. Ian Gary's on the card. Farik Basharat's on the card. He's a good prospect as well, and I always appreciate Tabitha Ricci. The prospect of the night is definitely going to go to Bo Nickal. He's one of the greatest collegiate wrestlers. He transitioned really well into MMA so far. He has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, fast striking that can transition into his wrestling quickly. The fighter of the night is definitely going to be Jon Jones. All eyes are going to be on him as long as he's not poking them out. He's going to try to become a 2-division champion and also take that #1 pound-for-pound spot. And if he goes and beats Ciryl Gane, I mean, already a lot of people regard him as the greatest fighter. Everybody knows my personal opinion. I don't count anybody that pop for PEDs. But if he goes and beats Ciryl Gane, you're going to be hearing all over the media for a long time that Jon Jones is the greatest fighter to ever walk the earth. The stake of the night is 100% Cody Garbrandt. If he loses to Trevin Jones, it's it for him. Cody Garbrandt would pretty much be no more. Former bantamweight champion, at his peak was seemed to be one of the biggest stars. He had everything to become a massive name in the game, and if he drops this to Trevin Jones, who's not even ranked, he would be 1-6 in his last 7 fights. That would be one of the biggest fall from graces we've ever seen in the sport. It already kind of is, to be honest. It's one of them. The banger of the night is 100% Julian Marquez versus Marc-Andre Barrios. Both guys that go for the knockout. Julian Marquez definitely brings that kind of fight to you. If you're a fan of brawls and just pure action, do not miss out on Marquez versus Barrios. And the fight of the night is easily the main event. Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane, the 2 best fighters on the card, probably the most skilled fight on the entire card, where it honestly seems like a lot of these fights have a big favorite going into them, whereas that one really doesn't. A lot of people think Jon Jones should be a big favorite, but realistically, he's actually not. A lot of people seem to think that Gane has a really good chance here. But let's start with our first fight, Brunson versus Dricus Plessis. 2 guys that punch with their chins up in the air like it's a Rocky fight, and either guy can get knocked out. Dricus is younger, he's faster, he's fresh, better chin most likely because he doesn't have the wear and tear, and he has a lot of power in his hands that he can come back in any sort of fight. Even if Brunson is beating him, never count out Dricus' power, as he's shown that against Trevin Giles. But at the same time, Brunson has one-punch knockout power as well. We haven't seen it too much lately, but it's always been there. He's always been known to be one of the harder punchers in the middleweight division, but he's gotten a bit slower. When guys age, speed is one of the first things that go out, and it definitely seems that way with Brunson. When you see him fight Jared Cannonier, he doesn't seem nearly as fast as what he used to be, but his power is always going to be alive. And Dricus, who blitzes down the center with his chin up in the air, throwing straight punches like that, he could definitely get clipped by a left hand from Brunson, and they both have practically the same reach as well, so they could both hit each other at any distance. And Brunson has a lot more experience with guys trying to knock him out in the stand-up, and he's also dealt with guys much faster than like Lyoto Machida or Uriah Hall, and he knocked both those guys out. But that was a long time ago. I would definitely have to say that Dricus' age is his biggest advantage here. The fact that he is younger and faster is honestly like the big reason as to why he would win this. If you look at it on paper, Brunson has the wrestling advantage. He's probably not going to get taken to the ground. He has some of the best wrestling in the whole division. Dricus was taken down by Darren Till. That is not good to see. Brunson also has good trips in the clinch. He's strong in the clinch. He could keep good top pressure like he showed against Edmund Shabazian. All of that wrestling with the fact that he can knock out Dricus at any moment. On paper, I really like Derek Brunson in this fight, and he is the underdog going into it. But with a lack of defense from both guys, chins are always exposed to get hit when they're on the offensive. Either guy can honestly win this. But I also do like Derek's more patient style, but then again, he could get overwhelmed if Dricus keeps punching at him. As long as Dricus can avoid the first left counter from Derek and then avoid the takedown, he should be okay. Originally, I was thinking that Dricus would be too much. His speed, his age, all of that would be way too much. But the more I think about the fight, the more I do like Derek Brunson. His experience, his patient style. He just fought Jared Cannonier as one of the top guys, and all of a sudden people think he's fallen off. The biggest thing going against him is the age and the speed. But ultimately, if I'm going to pick a fighter here, and I do like underdogs, and I'm going to go by a decision win. I think he can clip Dricus a few times before he takes it to the ground and just holds the top position and rides it out to a decision. And then we go to Bo Nickal versus Jamie Pickett. Bo Nickal wins, I guess. Like, this is a very good style for him to fight. Jamie Pickett has virtually zero grappling. He's not going to defend the takedown. Bo Nickal's also fast on the feet. He can explode with his hands really quickly. And with the threat of the takedown always being there, he is young as well. Pickett, a lot of losses there. He does hit pretty hard, so he can always catch Nickal if Nickal's not cautious enough on the feet. If he just thinks he's going to run right through Jamie Pickett in a stand-up fight, there's where Bo Nickal can run into some issues. So maybe because Pickett has more experience, it can help him win the fight and turn this into a giant upset. If Jamie Pickett wins, it's statistically the biggest upset in UFC history. But because of the massive gap in wrestling here, I easily have to go with Bo Nickal, and I'm going to go by a first round submission. I think he's going to really shine in this fight. And then we go to one of the more technical fights on the card, Mateusz Gamrot versus Jalin Turner. I'm excited about this one. Two guys who are dangerous on the ground. Jalin Turner is a bit reckless on the feet, but he really makes it work because of his overwhelming offense compared to his rather questionable defense. Mateusz Gamrot is very patient. He moves around a lot, tries to pick out his openings to mix up his wrestling and striking for the most part. He's extremely well-rounded when it comes to the stand-up. He doesn't really shine with anything he really does. He's just solid all the way around. And because of that style, he can make Turner throw some punches when he doesn't need to be throwing and counter him and then transition right into takedowns. But as soon as Gamrot shoots takedowns, Turner's going to try to snatch up that neck every single time. And because of how long he is in the guard, Gamrot has to really be wary about the triangles, about the arm bars. As soon as Gamrot passes the full guard, he's in his world. And I think that's the biggest difference in the fight here. Turner's offense is a big problem from Gamrot, especially with his reach. He switches stances all the time. He tries to catch it with those hooks and uppercuts. But Gamrot could be in a safe distance where he would try to catch some of those kicks to take the fight to the ground. But ultimately, I do think that Gamrot's top control after he passes guard is going to be a big issue for Turner, right? And when you saw Jamie Malarkey take him to the ground and control him a bit, that is not a good look going into this Mateusz fight. So ultimately, my prediction, I'm going to go with Mateusz Gamrot. He is a pretty big favorite. I don't think he should be as big as he is, but I do pick him to win by a third round submission. I think it should be a pretty good fight overall, though. And then we go to Geoff Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Other than the main event, this is the fight I'm most looking forward to on the card. Actually, almost as much as the main event, I'm going to be honest. I really want to see, does Shavkat actually reach the expectations? Because Geoff Neal is game. The guy has a lot of power, he has good boxing, southpaw, a lot of emphasis on that left hand, and some of the fastest hands in the whole division. He's also experienced at this point, he's fought a lot of good guys, and it can be pretty tricky of how he approaches this because you see different versions of Geoff Neal. You see him sometimes being a bit too patient and just sitting back, waiting for the opening. You've seen that not work out too well for him, especially against guys who are longer, fight him at a distance, and are counter strikers like Shavkat or Wonderboy for an example. He tends to do a lot better when he's aggressive. When he really lets that hand speed show, fighters get overwhelmed by his combinations. And he's not throwing 100% into every punch. He's throwing like 80% in every punch, but allows him to throw much faster. And in the middle of his combinations, he's finding different openings on you. Or if you just keep the same opening like Vicente Luque, you're going to see Geoff Neal just keep hitting him with the uppercut until something else shows or Vicente falls. Those aggressive left-hand combos really worries me for Shavkat because Shavkat has shown in the past to not move his head at times. But the thing that really works for Shavkat in the stylistic matchup is the fact that he's so methodical, right? He's so calculated in what he does. And if he has to only worry about a couple things from his opponent, it becomes a lot easier for him to download the data, understand what the opponent's trying to do, and then he just breaks them down systematically. And it happens really quickly in his fights. And that is why you often see him be very nonchalant for the first half of the round. And then you start to see him counter. the check left hook, the jab to keep him at bay, and then the spinning kicks come out of nowhere. At first, he's not moving too much. He's kind of just poking at you. He's feeling out the fight, and then a spinning hook kick comes out of nowhere and hits you like at the back of the head around your guard. His body kicks are amazing. I think because the southpaw versus orthodox style, that open body kick is always going to be there for him. Just like Geoff Neal's straight left is always going to be there for him, Shavkat's kicks are going to be nasty in this fight, and he doesn't have to be worried about getting taken to the ground because he has a complete wrestling, grappling advantage in the fight, and honestly, that's the biggest difference between the two. Geoff Neal definitely has a big chance with his hands in the stand-up, but if it goes to the ground, I mean, it's going to be tough. Maybe Geoff can make his way up, maybe he can stand up, but looking at what Shavkat just did to Neal Magny, his top pressure reminds me of Luke Rockhold, a smaller version of like Bigfoot Silva. They used to describe that kind of like a building on your chest, and that's what honestly seems like Shavkat feels like for these fighters when he gets on top of them. They can't shake him off at all. And when we talk about Neal Magny and how easily Shavkat dismantled him with his wrestling, Neal Magny out-grappled Geoff Neal. He took him down twice in their fight. And Neal's okay with his wrestling. He can take you down if he shoots enough, but that's honestly also his biggest weakness defensively. And he was able to take Geoff Neal to the ground. Santiago Ponzinibbio took him to the ground, and Santiago's not really a wrestler at all. Shavkat, at this point of his career, is the best wrestler slash grappler Geoff Neal has ever fought by a long shot. And I understand then Geoff fought Bilal Muhammad before, but Bilal back then was not who he is now. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I am going to go with Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I'm going to go by a second round submission. I think this should be a good show out for him to put him right into potentially even the top 5 of the welterweight division. He has good counters on the feet. His wrestling advantage is always going to be there. He can shoot under anything Geoff Neal attacks with if he is too aggressive, right? He can shoot a double right under that left hand and take him to the ground. He has the body kicks that are always going to be there for the opening, and then maybe condition them to go to the head. He has a spinning hook kicks around the other side too, just to mix up the targeting and the angles. And he has pretty good footwork. Now, he doesn't have flashy footwork, but he knows exactly where to be to counter you, to get away from your punches, and to start establishing his own jab. So it should be a very interesting fight. I'm really curious to see what Geoff Neal is going to do here, how he's going to show up, and how he's going to approach this when it comes to being aggressive or patient, because he definitely has a chance here if he plays it right. And then we go to the co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso. And my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Valentina Shevchenko, man. There's not really too much to say about this. Alexa Grasso has good hands. She's a good boxer, but she is smaller, which is never good going up against Valentina because she can bully you. She's usually having a harder time against the bigger fighters. Even Taila Santos is bigger than Shevchenko, and we saw how her strength was able to show up in that fight. Amanda Nunes in the past and various other fighters. When you're smaller than her, her trips are going to be pretty much impossible to stop. She's a good counter striker from a southpaw stance, looks for the check right hook, sometimes the left overhand, throws kicks from a distance, very simple stuff that are known from Shevchenko. And with Grasso's like one-dimensional boxing style, it's gonna be really hard for her to get into the distance she wants without getting kicked and not getting countered with the hands. But if she is able to get past the hand, she's gonna get clinched up and take it to the ground, and that's a complete gap in skill right there. The grappling difference is gonna be pretty vast in my opinion. Alexa Grasso can throw up some arm bars and triangles and stuff, but people are starting to think that Alexa Grasso is some crazy submission artist because she submitted Joanne Wood, which is her first submission win in her entire career. And also know this, Valentina barely ever fights in someone's guard. Think about every time Valentina is taking someone to the ground, she almost never falls into their guard. She's always in a side control or half guard. So it should be another Valentina Shevchenko fight. And then we finally go to the main event. Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane. Man, I cannot wait for this. I haven't been as excited for a fight like this since Charles Oliveira fought Dustin Poirier. This is my #1 fight of the entire year. We finally get to see Jon Jones in the heavyweight division. He hasn't fought in over 3 years. And he's going up against one of my favorite heavyweight strikers who shows a completely different kind of style that I so appreciate, man. I wish more heavyweights strike, or at least approach the striking like Ciryl Gane does, not just with power punches and be wild and brawling it out and stuff. Technical, fast, switching stances, knowing angles well, great combinations, throwing up even kicks. How many heavyweights don't even throw kicks? Ciryl Gane is what I always wanted from a heavyweight. And we finally get to see this kind of matchup. I see the consensus of this fight. Jon Jones wrestling makes the difference, and honestly, I can see that being the case. Ciryl Gane hasn't been training seriously in a long time, right? Which means that he probably didn't get his wrestling up to par where it should be to fight someone like Jones, and this is his first wrestler. Ciryl Gane has never fought a wrestler before, at least on this level. So he's going from rudimentary wrestling skill to one of the best wrestlers in the heavier weight classes, who is able to submit black belts like it's nothing, and is also going to be heavier than him. They're saying that Jon Jones is walking around at 255 pounds right now. That's heavier than Ciryl Gane, who walks around at 247 for 246, which means that most likely if Jones gets Ciryl Gane down, that's a lot of pressure on top of him, man, because we know that Francis Ngannou was big and strong and he was able to hold Gane to the ground pretty well, mainly because of his strength. Now imagine if Francis was a little bit smaller, but also had the technique that Jones does. Francis was big and strong and he held Gane down because of that, but he didn't have the technique that Jones has. So that is the scariest thing going for Ciryl Gane in the fight. But if we're going to be honest, in the most recent fights from Jon Jones, his wrestling has not looked that great. He was able to take some guys down here and there, but most of his takedowns are getting defended against guys like Dominic Reyes, where like 7 of them got defended, and then Anthony Smith was defending a bunch of them. Thiago Santos defended the lone takedown. Gustafsson defended a bunch of them as well in the second fight, even though Gus was over the hill at that point. And even when he takes these guys to the ground, many times they're able to pop back up to the feet. And you're not seeing the same kind of top control that Jones used to have against the smaller guys like Shogun and Vitor, etc. These bigger guys are really able to contest with Jones' strength and able to pop up under him. So if you make like a counter argument that Jones' wrestling is going to make him win the fight, Ciryl Gane's the biggest, strongest guy Jones ever fought. And he's extremely athletic and he's in his prime. So if Dominic Reyes can pop up to his feet like that, you would have to think that Ciryl Gane can as well. And also you have to think that Ciryl Gane can defend the takedowns better than Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith. And of course he has better striking than all those guys. He's very fast for a heavyweight. He's probably going to be faster than Jones. If Jones is like lethargic and he's not used to fighting with that weight on him, we actually might see Ciryl Gane be faster than Jones. Outspeed him in every exchange, create really good angles to land his own punches and kicks and stuff. So here's the thing about Jon Jones, and it's a big X factor because he hasn't fought in a long time, and now he's in a division we've never seen him compete in. Jon Jones can easily be ring rusted completely. Slow, forced movements, lethargic, losses reflexes, no cardio, and Ciryl Gane would absolutely destroy that version of Jon Jones. But Jones could also be more powerful, stronger in the wrestling, menacingly heavy with his top pressure because of his added weight combined with his technique. He can have a better chin because of the no weight cutting, while also being a little bit slower, of course. That version of Jones can be a big problem for Gane if the fight goes to the ground. And the thing about Ciryl Gane's grappling that a lot of people don't talk about is that he's a leg lock guy. His instinct when he gets taken down is to attack your legs with submissions. He even has a heel hook submission win in the UFC against Dontel Mays. And what we know is Gane has never fought a wrestler before. And wrestlers don't deal well with leg submissions. Not only are leg locks not common in wrestling, it's also not too common in MMA. And a lot of guys don't even try to learn leg locks, especially older fighters like Jones perhaps. So honestly, don't be surprised if Jones takes Gane down and has to fight hard out of a leg lock because of it. And Jones does have long and skinny legs, so it is a lot more vulnerable than anyone else Gane has gone to the ground with. Now overall, I do have to absolutely give Jon Jones the edge on the ground. I think he's better than Gane in pretty much everything else. His ground and pound would be so terrifying. His submissions at every opportunity where Gane is probably going to give up his back trying to get up, reaching his hands forward to push Jones off of him, and then Jones perhaps locks that arm up. The ground is a very scary place for Ciryl Gane. He's going to have to definitely find his way back up if he can't get that leg lock submission, but the leg locks can also create another path for him to get up. Leg locks can definitely be a submission, not only to injure the opponent, but also scramble enough to be able to stand up. And when it comes to the stand-up, I mean, Gane is just so much better. The biggest thing that Jones can have here is the fact that he might hit much harder than before. He might actually have some knockout power, but Ciryl Gane fought Derek Lewis, Tai Tuivasa, Francis Ngannou, and he didn't care about their power that much. Tai did hit him once and hit him good, but overall, he easily gets by even more powerful guys than Jon Jones, and someone like Francis Ngannou who has a similar reach. Jones does have some leg kicks, right? He can attack the knees perhaps, but Ciryl Gane's always switching stances and moving away. He has dynamic kicks as well. His jab is going to be a big weapon for him to enter distance, and he could punch Jon Jones at almost any range, which is very new for Jones to deal with. The last two guys that were able to do that were Ovince St. Preux and Alexander Gustafsson. Dominic Reyes was able to kind of do it, but he doesn't have the same kind of reach than Gane does, and he was using more angles to do it. So imagine like a Dominic Reyes with more intelligent striking and a longer reach to get at Jones. That's what Ciryl Gane has here. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, this is a much harder fight to predict because we don't know what to expect out of Jones. We don't know how he's going to show up. If he shows up even a slightly less version of himself, he might just lose the fight. But if he's in his prime, like if his skills are all intact, I definitely see his wrestling shining through. Him having a better chin is such a big thing though, right? It really saves him from getting like clipped once and getting dropped or something, which can still happen, but the fact that he's not weight cutting at all, I like that for Jon Jones in this fight. You know what? I'm going to make this interesting. I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane. I'm going to go with Jon Jones not being at 100%. I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane's speed advantage, able to create distance on Jones and counter him on the feet. Jones is rather plodding in a lot of his movements, which can make it easy for Ciryl Gane to move away from everything. And it is going to be in a big cage as well, so that's going to favor Ciryl Gane. The leg locks might be a big issue, might be actually a good way for Ciryl Gane to stand up from the bottom. So you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane here. It's a risky one. I can see both guys winning this, but if I'm going to pick somebody, I'm going to pick Ciryl Gane. I'll ride with him. Why not? Man, watch when Jones pokes Gane in the eye and the fight just changes completely. But the odds on that fight are actually pretty nice. It originally opened up as a pick'em, so both guys were even on the odds. But over time, people are really getting onto Jon Jones because of that wrestling advantage, and it's 100% logical. It could absolutely happen where Jones could even dominate Ciryl Gane with his wrestling. So if you want to go and bet on Jon Jones, capitalize on these odds, or you want to go with the now underdog Ciryl Gane, definitely go to mybookie.ag where they have the best odds out there. But beside that main event, I mean, the odds are pretty crazy, man. We're at least going to see one big upset on this card because look at this. Look at every big favorite on the card. Shevchenko's a minus 769. Shavkat minus 555. Gamrot minus 227. Nickal minus 1600. Dricus minus 238. Gane minus 833. Cameron Simon minus 312, Tabitha Ritchie minus 312, Basharat minus 476, and Rakhmonov minus 277. There is no way that all of these favorites win. There has to be a big upset. I'm really trying to narrow down on which one it is. I do like that first fight. Esteban's a good fighter, but Rakhmonov is a good wrestler and he could really nullify Esteban's strengths. Jessica Penny's good on the ground, but Tabitha Ritchie has good judo. That's a bit of an iffy. I don't agree with Tabitha being a minus 300. As much of a fan of her I am. Her grappling skills are pretty solid overall. Gary should do very well against Song, but Song's a veteran, man. I don't like minus 833. That is enormous. Maybe like a minus 200 seems good. Julia Marquez is actually an underdog. That's interesting. Amanda Ribas and Vivian Rajo are very close to a pick'em. That's a very even fight. I agree 100% with those odds. Could it be Cody Garbrandt? Could the upset of that night be Cody Garbrandt losing to Trevin Jones? How poetic would that be? Now, according to my picks, the two upsets I'm picking for are Derek Brunson beating Dricus and Ciryl Gane beating Jon Jones. Very tough ones to really predict there. I do like on paper Derek beating Dricus, but with the H factor and the speed and stuff and how wild that fight can actually be, both guys have no defense. It is a risky one. And with technique, Ciryl Gane defeating Jon Jones has to be in the stand-up or he just gets that crazy leg lock submission. And it really has to rely on Jon Jones not being 100%, not being the same, ring rusted and everything. So it is a wild card, man. There's a lot of interesting fighters to pick here to get that big upset, or if you want to go with the parlay, you could get multiple of those guys winning. Just put like $5 on it or something. You can really win big. I'm not gonna lie, I honestly do that sometimes. I pick like the most ridiculous parlay odds on just underdogs and put like $5 on it because what do you lose, honestly? You gain so much if it happens, and you really don't lose much for it either. So there's a lot of strategies you can go through here. Pick different parlays or certain fighters to win, favorites, underdogs. You have it all here at an absolute exaggerated degree. So this is a kind of card you could definitely win big if you make your picks intelligently. And make sure to use the deposit bonus where MyBookie will match up your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. In order to activate this, just use the promo code WEASEL. That's WEASLE. And of course, the bonuses are going to come with a rollover requirement to withdraw, a standard for all online betting sites. And MyBookie has some of the lowest rollovers in comparison to competitors. So you're not really going to find a better deal than mybookie.ag. So make sure to go to mybookie.ag and definitely capitalize on UFC 285, man. These cards do not come that often. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give this a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. The prediction thumbnail might change with the winner of this fight.